Welcome, Dr. Bansi.
Tell me now.
Doctors, we are live.
Great.
Unmute. Hetal, unmute. Hetal, unmute. Unmute.
Hello, everybody. Good evening and a very warm welcome to the WV3 webinar series of the PCOS Society, where we discuss a very important practical aspect on any one of the aspect of PCOS, the why, when, and what series. And our topic today is a very interesting one where we are going to discuss our topic today is a very interesting one where we are going to discuss, can adjuvants improve the oocyte quality?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Sharma here.
Adi?
Good evening, Dr. Sharma. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
These webinars are done under the inspiration and guidance of our founder, President Madam Dr. Durusha. The convener today is Dr. Kanti Bansal, and we have a great panel of experts consisting of Dr. Banshi Sabu sir, Dr. Ramani Devi madam, Brigadier Dr. R.K. Sharma sir, and Madam Dr. Sushma Bakshi. I, Dr. Hetal Patolia, will be presenting the case to you. So first of all, our president, Dr. Durusha madam. I cannot introduce her, and nor can anybody else need to, because she needs no introduction. But just to recollect a few facets of that multi-talented diamond, let us just go through it to inspire ourselves. She's the director of Gynae World, consultant at Breach Candy and Jaslok Hospital in Mumbai. She's the founder, president of the PCOS Society of India, founder, trustee of Women's Empowerment Foundation, trustee and past president of various societies, Indian national societies like MOGS, the FOGSI, the ISAR, the IMS. She not only represents India at national but international levels in various societies also. She is the honorary fellow of the Royal College of Obstetrician and Gynecologists. She is the international advisor in the special interest group at ASHRAE. She is also the past director of digital education at International Menopause Society. One of the things that is not mentioned here, but I would take the liberty to share, and many of people like me would have experienced that she's one of those teachers who not only clarifies on a subject, but who generates, who kindles that passion for that subject that she teaches also. So let us hear our madam first. Shobit, can you play the video, please?
Hi, I'm Dr. Durusha, the founder president of the PCOS Society of India. The society is of multidisciplinary experts in the field of gynecology, dermatology, endocrinology, and all the allied specialists who look after PCOS women. We all are focused on creating awareness on PCOS, both amongst doctors and updating their knowledge, and we are also wanting to create the awareness amongst women at large for them to understand what they are having and what their problem is. In short, our organization is consisting of experts both from India, and we also have members from outside the country. It's important for all of you to be with us and join us in our endeavor to upgrade our knowledge in this field and reach out to our patients so that they have a better quality of life in future. Thank you.
So next, our moderator and convener today, the famous friend, philosopher and guide, Dr. Tanti Bansal Madam. She is the director of Safal Fertility Foundation in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. She has the distinction of many firsts, like the first IVF baby of Gujarat, the first single mother of India. She's so many credits as firsts in ART. She's been awarded with the prestigious Royal College of Obstetrician and Gynecologists, Distinguished Service Medal for Dedication and Achievement in Women's Healthcare in the year 2020. She's the Managing Committee member and patron of the PCOS Society of India. She's past president, Gujarat Chapter ESAR, chairperson in various committees. She's the founder chairperson of Endometriosis Committee, Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecological Society of India, that is FOGSI, vice chairperson, All India Congress, the AICOG that we had in a very famous conference that everybody still remembers. She's the librarian of Indian Society of Assisted Reproduction, and she has published 14 books on infertility management on various subjects. She's a great teacher, and she's also a peer reviewer of various journals. So welcome, madam. Over to you, Dr. Tanti Bansal, madam.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Hetal, for starting off this W3 webinar in such a fantastic way, and also, going through my full CV, which is really not necessary. And can you please show me the, CV of Dr. Bansi Sabu? Yes, he is such a famous endocrinologist of India, and I think now globally also very well known. I generally meet him on the airports and in flights because he's all the time invited for these webinars and lectures. I'm really, really very proud of him because he's from my Ahmedabad. And when I met a few years back, he told me, madam, I'm just going to complete my thesis, PhD. And I was so interested because that was something of my interest too. And then I was, like bewildered that endocrinologist, very leading and famous physician of our city, and how has he got time? So I think we all need to learn time management also from this bright person. So dear friends, a formal introduction: Chief Diabetologist and Chairman of Diabetes Care and Hormone Clinic, Ahmedabad, PhD in Phenotyping and Genotyping of Young Diabetic in India, Honorary Secretary, Indian Academy of Diabetes, elected Executive Committee member, International Society for Pediatric and Adolescent Diabetes, Honorary Secretary, Diabetes in Asia Study Group, President of Research Society for the Study of Diabetes in India, President, All India Association for Advancing Research in Obesity, Executive Committee member, Diabetic Foot Society of India, Executive Secretary, Diabetes India, Executive Committee member, Association of Physicians of India, Governing Body member, Diabetes in Pregnancy Study Group of India, Honorary Secretary, API, that is Association of Physicians of India, Ahmedabad chapter. And there are so many other things because he's so modest, it's not put it here. One thing I would really want to add about him is that he's a very, very, very simple person and very friendly with everybody. And I always see him smiling, and he doesn't just preach. because he has to tell people about the lifestyle management as far as diabetes is concerned. I regularly see him, walking and in the gym, and we often meet there as well in Ahmedabad. So, real warm welcome, dear Dr. Bansi Sabu. And one more thing, actually, I think I can take all the 1.5 hours, telling about him. He's, we all are a little old, I think, at least I am. But he's such an young, energetic person. He's still very young and he's done so much. I don't know, by the time he will be my age, should have reached actually sky's the limit. So with this warm welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for nice words and very kind introduction. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce another extremely academic, intelligent, and you know what, she's my very, very good friend. Nowadays it happens that I don't know how many times I've introduced her in India, in foreign countries. So it's like we go hand in hand. And generally she tells me, madam, without you, I don't do, quite a few of the things, really great things. So thank you for that, dear Dr. Ramani. She is managing, actually everybody in India knows, she's the vice president now of Foxy, and she's doing the maximum work I think I've ever seen any vice president doing. So she is the managing director at Trichy Fertility Center, Ramakrishna Medical Center. Her center is known as Janani IVF. I already told you she's National Vice President of Foxy, Endometriosis Committee Chairperson. Actually, I was the founder Endometriosis Committee Chairperson, and then I gave the torch to her. And then believe me, she's been doing she did extremely well even in endometriosis. She's an executive member of SAPOC, Endometriosis Committee, peer reviewer for Jogi, ARCOG, International Editorial Board member, Bangladesh Journal of Fertility and Sterility, Vice President Oration of South Yuva Foxy. Just recently she had given that. Then she's editorial board member, International Journal of Human Reproduction, and various awards she's had. So with this, welcome. Yes.
Thank you, Kanti madam, for your kind words. I think both of us go hand in hand, and let us continue our future endeavors together and make it a grand success.
I assure you. Yeah. So, we have such stalwarts in our panel today, experts. Actually, I'm really, really very happy. Now I have none other than Brigadier Dr. R.K. Sharma. Actually, I have a lot of respect for people who have worked in the armed forces and who are, somewhere related with the army, because I know these are the people who are really disciplined in life. Like even my husband was there for some time in the army, but his family didn't allow him to move further. That's why he came to the medical college and I met him. So, I really, really have heard so much about Dr. R.K. Sharma, and also heard him in many conferences. His knowledge is very perfect, and he really gives very awesome lectures in the conferences. So he's director of Ma Fertility Center, unit of Ma Kamakhya Fertility Solutions Private Limited. He's ex-director and HOD, Institute of Reproductive Medicine and IVF Center, Primus Super Speciality Hospital, New Delhi, founder director, ART Center of Army Hospital, Delhi, and Southern Command ART Center at Command Hospital, Pune, advisory ART programs of many successful centers in civil medical colleges, private institutions and services, postgraduate teacher and examiner, MUHS and Delhi University, examiner for fellowship in reproductive medicine, DNB, former General Secretary IFS, recipient of Jadishwari Mishra Award, FOXO, Vishisht Seva Mandal by the President of India. With such great achievements, we have such a real simple and a gentleman, Brigadier Dr. R.K. Sharma. I welcome you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for nice words, ma'am.
So now, last but not the least, I always feel she's really the first. I think one of the very senior professors of our country from Baroda, and my very good friend. I really don't know how much, I mean, I have too many good friends, but Dr. Ramani and Dr. Sushma are on the top list. So, dear Sushma is the clinical head OSS Fertility Vadodara, teaching faculty Telangana University for Fellows in Reproductive Health, Chairman Midlife Fertility Committee, Indian Menopause Society, WH Fellow at Harvard, Boston, and Managing Committee Member Gujarat Isar, ex-assistant professor at Medical College from 1984 to 1999. President SOGOG 2013 to 14. SOGOG is our state of Gujarat OBGY. Now, past President Baroda OBGY Society, Founder, Secretary and Patron Vadodara Menopause Society, Director Subecha Multi-Speciality Hospital, Director Gopal Fertility and Reproductive Health Clinic, special interest in ultrasonography, infertility and endocrinology. I would like to make a small change here. Her qualifications are written as MSc PhD. It was a small mistake, I think, by somebody, but she is MD Gynecology and she's a super teacher, a super human being. Welcome you, dear Sushma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kanti.
Yeah. Now she's also one of my favorite girls, Dr. Hetal. Of course, she's not a very junior person, but I like her voice. You know, she has a very commanding voice. So when Dr. Duru told me to do this program, and then she said you should have a junior to present the case. I told Dr. Duru that she is not a junior, but I would like her to present. So here she is. She's a recipient of 5 gold medals for academic excellence, diploma in reproductive medicine and infertility, medical legal systems, clinical nutrition and clinical research, consultants SGVP Holistic Hospital for a project to combine Ayurveda and allopathy in women care, consultant Asian Pediatrics for a dedicated PCO clinic and conservative weight loss management, consultant KD Hospital, life member PCO Society of India, FOXI, IMS, ISAR, FSI, managing committee member AOGS, managing committee member of Utkarsh and various NGOs working for women's health in rural areas. So she's doing a wide variety of services, I must say, because her nature is like that she's very dedicated to her patients. And initially she had a huge practice in Rajkot. But you know how it happens to all of us women, sometimes we have to let go so many things of our interest and do for our family. So she came here to Ahmedabad because of her husband's pediatric practice, and her children were also in studying 11th, 12th that time. And then so leaving all her huge practice, she came to Ahmedabad, but here she's into more holistic management for patients, which is also very important. How many of us are doing all that? Most of us are, of course, we are doing service, but for some, the final point is monetary gain as well, but she is doing something different. So I'm very proud of this girl, Dr. Hetal Patolia. Welcome. And now I would like you to present the case.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for all the honor and nice words. So we go ahead with the case presentation today. So the case is about a 29-year-old PCOS patient with a BMI of 30. She has a married life of 5 years with primary infertility. Her menstrual cycle is of 1.5 to 2 months for 5 to 7 days without any pain. The family history consists of a mother and sister having type 2 diabetes. The male partner is normal in all his investigations, including the semen analysis. Her past IVF treatments, there were not many records, but then what could make out from the past was 22 oocytes were retrieved, wherein they had 9 embryos. The embryos were cryopreserved and an FET cycle was done twice, which failed. So now she had come to our center We did a detailed PCOS profile and a USG with AFC. PCO profile showed insulin resistance, an AMH of 11 nanograms, and other reports were normal. USG showed PCO morphology in both the ovaries with right ovarian volume of 14.5 cc and the left ovarian volume of 16 cc with multiple follicles. We started her on metformin 500 milligrams BD. Patient was eager to conceive and did not want to wait. Actually, we wanted her to reduce her weight. We wanted her to settle down on metformin with its optimal dose and then start the management. But then she was not ready to wait and she requested us to start the treatment. So we started her on the NTAC protocol with an FSH stimulation of 225 international unit given for 5 days. On the 6th day, when we saw there were no follicles in the right ovary, the number of follicles were 15 and in the left ovary were 18, but the size were around 8 millimeters. And the dose was then increased to 300 international unit and the antagonist was started daily from 8th day itself. Monitoring was done on the 10th day again. The follicle size is improved to 14 mm. And so the same dose was continued. On the 13th day, agonist trigger of 2 milligrams of leuprolin was given. And after 35 hours, the OPU was done. We recovered 28 oocytes, of which 14 were M2 and M1 were 11 and 8 embryos were formed. The embryo grading were as follows. Grade 1 done. Grade 2 we had just 1 embryo and grade 3 to 7 embryos. Grade 3 were 7 embryos. All the embryos were cryopreserved. FET was done, but again, unfortunately, there was no conception at all. So the oocyte quality we felt was not good enough. The embryos were forming just like before too, but the quality was not good and that is why maybe she did not have a positive result. So the case is open for discussion now. Can we add anything to this and improve the quality of oocyte and give her a positive result in this?
Yeah, thank you, Hetal. Can you just stop sharing?
Sure, madam. Just a minute.
No problem. Yeah, so we can see all the experts, quite handsome, beautiful people here. And the topic is also very tricky, I must say, because it's not just about adjuvants in PCOS subjects or infertility subjects, but it is adjuvants which will only, improve the quality of the oocyte. So, and also we have a case here. So what I have planned, because we also have our esteemed experts like Dr. Bansi Sabu, so I have a little different way of discussing this case and this topic. So what I'm doing is I'm asking some questions pertaining to the case and some general aspects as well, so that we cover the whole topic very well, because I don't think we can cover all the adjuvants just with this case. And whenever anybody answers any question, if somebody has a point to make, you can just raise your hand and then I can, we also answer it, because we need a lot of inputs from different people. And so that is the fun of this expert opinion, I think. And so now I will start with Dr. Sushma Bakshi, because I think as a professor in the medical college for so many years, she would like some basic things in the case to be known. So Dr. Sushma, what do you think? What about the history in this patient? Do you think there's something missing in taking the history, and would you like to go in depth when a PCOS infertile patient comes to you? Yeah.
Yes. Many thanks to the PCOS Society and Dr. Durusha for involving me in this prestigious webinar, and thanks Dr. Kanti for making me part of this. Very important question in the case presentation, beautifully narrated by Dr. Hetal. One thing is that the her BMI is 30. Some of the points which we need to know is that was she obese right from her adolescent, or she has suddenly gained weight during last maybe some few months or something like that. The menstrual history is irregular, has been said, and it is part of the Rotterdam's criteria. The mother and sister are having type 2 diabetes, and that because we know that we are going to discuss, as it has been said right from beginning, it's a PCOS case, and so it goes in favor of family history. What we need to know more about is that in between, in last 5 years, what other treatment she had taken. Because what we have on narration is that she went for IVF treatment. So whether she undergo any other treatment, and what treatment she took, and what was the response out of it, and that is one thing we would like to know. We also would like to know the oocytes which were retrieved at that point of time. Though Dr. Hetal said that not many details were available, but if we know the quality of oocytes at that point of time, it would be useful.
Come to that a little later. Right now, I want to know, whenever such a patient comes to us, to our clinic, what are the basic, you told a few things, but I want that, supposing we are thinking she's obese and we are thinking of some molecule. So are there other things in a PCOS? Because it's not that only obesity is there, and there may be so many other things which the patient will not know. That is important, but we need to understand. And also, Dr. Ramani Devi, would you like to add something?
Madam, first of all, I thank the PCOS Society and Dr. Kanti Pansal for making me a part of this wonderful webinar. See, Dr. Sushma had rightly pointed out regarding the basic history, what are the other things she should have been asked. I would like to know whether she has had any previous history of any ovulation induction without ART or IUI cycles. And definitely, I would like to evaluate her for her metabolic syndrome, because her BMI is high. Whether she is having a family history of diabetes is there, definitely. So I would like to go in details for the insulin resistance or the glucose profile for that particular patient is very, very important. Added to that, being obese in PCOS, we can have two components. Whether she has associated hyperandrogenemia also, then hypothyroidism. So these are all some of the important factors. And like menstrual history, whether from the initial part of her menarche itself, she was having irregular cycles. That is also one important thing, because that is definitely that is more in favor of anovulatory cycles that are existing in her. So so I would like to investigate her further for her metabolic profile, plus her thyroid status, hyperandrogenemia, and associated FSH, LH, all those things I'd like to have. Plus, if she's going to high level of estrogen clinically, then we have to have an assay for the prolactin level also.
Yeah, that will come under investigations. Right now, I thought it's just symptoms and signs. So, Dr. Sharma, would you like to add something?
Yeah, since we have a little bit of history of both the cycles, the previous cycle and this cycle, and what we find that she has found many oocytes, and many of them were immature. So, and we should know her lipid profile as well, because it has been shown that a patient having hypercholesterolemia, they may have more immature eggs than the mature eggs. So I would like to know her lipid profile, and also I would like to know, what was the, we know that she's a PCO, and we know that she's a failed implantation case also twice. What was her endometrium like? Because PCO also affects endometrium. And secondly, the antagonists in this particular last cycle, I think was started on day 8 or something, not on day 6. Now, my observation with that is that when we are stimulating the PCOS patient, there initially the estrogen levels start rising very high, and with the result there can be a early illness surge in these patients. So we
Correct.
should start antagonists early, because otherwise there will be a mismatch between the endometrium, and that is why that could have been one of the reasons for failure of implantation in this case.
Yeah,
One
so,
more,
yeah.
Kanti madam, I would like to add up some more, because in this patients, though there were 22 oocytes in the first cycle, they have not given any detail about how much of M2 oocytes they got it. But in the subsequent cycles, the M2 oocytes are low. So that means there is asynchronization of the follicular development, and we tend to pick up more of intermediary follicles also. That will be the reason for the M1 follicles as well as M1 as well as the GV oocytes. So in such cases, like I perfectly agree with Dr. Sharma to start the antagonist much earlier. See, I have my own criteria for that. That is whenever
Dr. Ramani, can we go to the protocol a little bit later? I want to discuss so many other
okay, madam.
Elementary things or basic things. I like to do that. So what I feel when this patient had come, actually Dr. Hetal told me that this patient, when she came to her, and she did not have any proper reporting by the previous doctor. That was one major problem. So we have to let go with some of the things that has been known to her regarding this case. And also, some basic things that we need to see when such a patient comes. We know she, in her family diabetes was there, PCOS was there, but then it makes us more responsible to ask her. We have to think what type of treatment we want to give her. So what about any skin tags? I think Dr. Bansi Sabu will agree with me that if a patient is there with insulin resistance, these are the patients who will definitely have skin tags. Because I run a PCOS clinic, a specialized clinic, so I see these patients and you'll be surprised. And just because we diagnose insulin resistance doesn't mean, like Dr. Ramani already told, that the hyperandrogenism. So we need to ask them about any hair and also hypothyroidism. So hair loss, male pattern hair, abdominal hair, and also alopecia. All that we need to ask the patients properly, and acanthosis nigricans, etc. I think these are simple things, but they give us a lot of additional value. So now I move on to Dr. Bansi Sabu. And can you, because now we are going into the next phase, the insulin resistance part, and of course this patient must be having hyperinsulinemia also. So Dr. Bansi Sabu would, he's the right person, I suppose, to explain the real mechanism that happens in these obese patients and PCOS patients regarding the hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance.
So first of all, thanks Dr. Kanti Bansal for involving me for this panel discussion. Thanks PCOS Society for giving me an opportunity. And as the case was discussed, and it was started with discussion with Dr. Sushma Bakshi and Dr. Raman Devi and then Dr. R.K. Sharma, and the gynecological aspect, whatever they told, which I fully agree with that. And then as you told that this patient should also have a, on a leading question, you can ask the history of hyperandrogenism by alopecia, asking about the hair growth, and all those aspects are perfectly fine. But what we are seeing as an endocrinologist, as a metabolic physician, the patient had gone to a gynecologist for primary purpose is for getting the pregnancy. And, the patient is not understanding the importance that she had, she had become obese, she is having irregular menstruation, she is not understanding the PCOS. So here as an endocrinologist or as a physician or a metabolic physician, if I get this type of patient, probably this patient either it is referred by a gynecologist or patient had come to me for just obesity management. That could be the possibility, and then I will diagnose the patient. Now here, what I will do is that this patient, I will explain what exactly the problem she is having, why she had developed over a period of time, this obesity, which she is having abdominal obesity, her waist hip ratio is altered, how she can lead to this obesity is going to lead insulin resistance, and what exactly insulin resistance lead to multiple cysts in your ovary, how this multiple cyst in your ovary is going to imbalance your estrogen and androgen system, and how it is going to create a menstrual irregularity, and that will lead to infertility. At the same time, before the patient goes out from my clinic, I would like to see the family history, because this lady may have a younger girl who might be also suffering from PCOS, because her family is both her mother and father. She may be unmarried, and tomorrow, after 5 years, again, she may have the same problem. We are also going to explain what could be the treatment and why it had happened. As you had rightly asked, that why a patient is developing insulin resistance. Let me start with that. We all South Asians are, even at our BMI of 23 to 25 also, we all are having higher visceral obesity. So we all are thin fat Indians. Primarily, we all are thin fat Indians. We have higher visceral obesity, and that is the cause for our higher insulin resistance. So primarily, all of us may be having hyperinsulinemia. We all have more sedentary lifestyle that is also creating more problem. Third problem about our diet, which is an epigenetic factor. So what we are eating all the time is carb, carb, carb. Our diet contains 75% of the item is only carbohydrate. Our protein intake is less. Our muscle mass is less. We are having sarcopenic obesity, which is causing hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance. So how we explain the patient, like as we are increasing our body weight, our pancreas is going to make more amount of insulin, because pancreas or our body wants to keep your glucose level normal. So what happens, as your glucose increases, the pancreas is going to make more amount of insulin to keep your sugar level normal. But you are eating more and more, and this cycle, vicious cycle goes on, and a person become overweight and obese. This hyperinsulinemia, the extra amount of insulin which is secreted from your body, from your pancreas, is exactly not the same amount of insulin which happens in a normal person. Here, insulin and pro-insulin ratio is different, and this higher pro-insulin is more atherogenic. It requires more amount of this pro-insulin, which is responsible for your PCOS. It is responsible for your NAFLD, which is non-alcoholic fatty liver. It is responsible for higher SGPT, SGOT. This increase in ovarian cyst, because now the oocytes is not coming out from the ovary, which leads to your irregularity of the menstruation. There will be increase in the androgen level, which is responsible for all those things of your alopecia or hair losses and all those things. So now we try to explain that this everything is reversible. Now, to make it reversible, it requires a lot of education. It requires a lot of motivation. And patient is, just try to get the pregnancy earliest possible, and they would like to go to Dr. Hethel and would like to go to Kanti Bansal or IVF specialist, and they try to get the child as early as possible, because since last 15 years she has not done anything, and probably she will get the pregnancy also. During pregnancy she may develop even GDM also. That possibility is also very, very high. And post pregnancy she may not again come to the metabolic physician, because she will be just doing all those what she wants to do. But again, after 5 years or 7 years, she will come to me as a diabetic patient. She will come with a dyslipidemia. She may develop a coronary artery disease. So I explain the patient, when you are going to get a child at the age of 29, it is also your duty to become healthy, because you should be a healthy mom. You should have this child will grow in next 20 years, and in next 20 years, you should not develop diabetes. You should not develop coronary artery disease. You should be normal. This is 30-year-old, but we see sometimes 40-year-old female is going from an IVF specialist clinic, and she just wants to get the pregnancy. Her primary aim is to get the pregnancy. And we try to explain that you should live long for next 20 years to bring up your child. That is more important rather than just to get a child. So, it's a holistic approach. So approach to patient from an IVF specialist, from a dermatologist point of view, from endocrinologist point of view may be different. The elephant is same, but we are seeing the different leg. That's the problem,
Correct.
We are seeing, I will see different hormonal problem, somebody seeing IVF problem, a skin specialist is going to see the dermatological problem. But we all, under the PCO Society, I think we must congratulate, we all are here on a one platform to discuss the different problems of a one patient. And patient is one, so we all should have a very holistic approach for this. I agree here with Hetal that we should start with metformin, but I will not be in hurry to start the metformin. Rather, I explain why I am giving the metformin, how it is going to work on you, how the diet your problem, how I can decrease your calorie content, how I can decrease your carbs, how you can reduce your weight for next 10 kg. If she is not going to reduce by next 10 or 20% of her weight, there is no point of going for the infertility treatment. She may be in hurry that I want the child, but I think that is very, very important. That will be my approach to the patient.
Very excellent celebration, Dr. Basis. Actually, I think we both are doing, on very similar grounds. I may be doing IVF, but I spend 1 hour in counseling the patients the first time they come and do it all very methodically. But now I got a hint that Hetal and myself should divert our patients to Pansi Sabu.
No, I'm not saying that. That is not my meaning.
No. I'm just joking, because people will get bored of such a, high funda topic. So that's okay. But then I like the way you explained, that is the point that I invited you, because we should get an all-round picture of this situation. And also, I like the way you compared that patient to an elephant. I really liked it. Only then we can picturize and then think, yes, the elephant has gone here, there. And then ultimately, one of us or all of us together will make her healthy, live long, get a baby, not have gestational diabetes, etc., etc. Lovely. I liked your deliberation really too much. So now, Dr. Sharma, would you like to, I think you should, sorry for telling that, but I have so many questions and we still third or fourth question. Just let me know about, you can stick to this patient only, the investigations that you would like to do in this patient. I think
first of all, the patients, as Dr. Bansi said, they are in hurry, but we as a clinician have a responsibility to counsel them and, make them, understand their problem, that they need some treatment before we do the IVF. Otherwise, we again become part of the failure only. So I think that part, having said that, now the investigations, basically, the patient has already been investigated for all the things. And I would like to know her, the total testosterone level, the free testosterone level, and, DHA 17 hydroxyprogesterone level. Basically, to know, the androgens and the source of androgen in these patients, and then accordingly treat them. And the lipid profile I said earlier, I would like to know for these patients. And the male factor anyway is normal, and suppose, that we have already done it. And besides that, we are looking after their health, their hemoglobin and the CBC and thalassemia, rubella, all those things, basic tests which we do for all of the patients, we'll be doing for them also.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Sushma, what change would you like to do for this patient? Now she's not having any baby. So would you like to change any treatment or anything else? What would you like to do next?
Yes, I'm coming to that answer. And the way in which Dr. Bansi, he did say about the genesis and pathophysiology of PCO. A small thing I wanted to add here, Dr. Kanti, is that we can trace the origin right from up to the fetal life, because those babies who are born small for gestational age, and those fetuses who are exposed to androgens intrauterine, they have more chances of developing PCOS in adult life. So that was a little addition. And in corollary with your question, that what functionalities we can do in this case, Well, I'll take this patient in two perspectives. One is that metabolically how she is. So all the PCL as well as her hormonal status is something I would like to check. And second thing is I would also say that she has twice IVF failure. So we should investigate her with respect to her recurrent implantation failure also. So uh, these two things keeping in mind, I would like to investigate her further. Do I say what all additional investigations we should do?
You can complete it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you
So,
can.
so I would like to know the endometrium, how it is the best at the time of
Dr.
transfer.
Sharma also told us that he would like to know about the endometrium. Yes.
Endometrium, I would like to know the oocyte quality, which has been said also. And as per the KPI index, the number of mature oocytes are less. And that is what we see in PCOS cases. I also would like to do hysteroscopy of this patient just to know there is any intrauterine problem. And ERA test to know the endometrial receptivity. Genetic testing of the couple also would be necessary because there has been uh, implantation failure. So sometimes Y deletion or some of the mosaics in female can lead to the aneuploidies can lead to recurrent implantation failure. And immunological problem also I would like to extend into the like APLA test also I would like to do. So these are some of the things I would like to add before going for further treatment to this lady.
So that's so much like a professor, Sushma, very systematic, and you'd not like to leave any stone unturned, I must say. So now I would like Dr. Ramani Devi. Yeah, I think Dr. Bansi Sabo has said it all, including lifestyle interventions or lifestyle modifications, which is one very important part whenever we get PCOS subjects. It may be any type for anything, adolescent PCOS or patient with later on she comes with other complications. But now, as far as our infertility is concerned, it's a must for these patients to lose weight, and then we have to tell them that. But I always tell them that they have to be disciplined. First of all, they have to set their clock. Then it is not only reducing the calories, but it is also exercise. So reducing the calorie, the right type of calorie, that also Dr. Bansi said. We have carb, how proteins are important, how a proper distribution of the type of what we eat is important. And also the hypocalorie and exercise go hand in hand. And then we have to tell, as far as exercise is concerned, we have to tell them, you do the exercises, I tell them, till you die. There's no shortcut. It's not just for getting a baby. Then these patients will be healthy for a long time, as Dr. Bansi Sapu said. So with this, why I'm telling all this, I'm not an expert. I'm supposed to be a convener and moderator, but I want you all to talk on something else and not the lifestyle, because then we can go on talking about the lifestyle. So, dear Ramani, would you like to do some other treatment for this patient? Say, for instance, would you like to add some adjuvant? Already, I think Hetal has said that she's given metformin. So can you just throw some light on that?
Yes, madam. First thing is, you have very well documented about the lifestyle modification and weight reduction. Tell them that even a 5 to 10% reduction in the weight gain is going to improve her fertility outcome. So that we need to motivate. Best thing is, I ask them what is the type of food they take, and then modify according to them, and less of carb and more of protein. So then again, you have been asking about some of the drugs.
Just interrupt you for 1 minute. Sorry about it. I forgot to tell. Another very important thing, as far as exercises are concerned, you have to tell them to choose the type of exercise they like. I tell
Yes.
them you choose anything, dancing, aerobics, gym. Sometimes they can combine. Some people, some women or girls, they don't like to do the same thing for a long time. So you can tell them you change up whenever you want. It's
Yes.
give them the liberty, and we should tell that you have to enjoy that exercise program, so they'll continue for till they die. Otherwise, they'll not continue. Yeah,
See,
you
that
can.
monotonous pattern of exercise they may not like. They would like to go for, youngsters would like to go for Zumba, dancing, and all the other things. But whereas middle-aged woman, she would like to go for a regular walking and gym, etc.
You
So
never
if
know. You
we
never
can give them.
know. Ramani, even middle-aged, old-age like me, we
Yes.
also like to do Zumba. So you
Yeah.
cannot say just no, no
No
bar.
limit for any type of exercise, that I understand, madam. So suppose you give them a time frame of about 1 month or 2 months, find out whether they are able to reduce at least 1 or 2 kilograms of weight. Otherwise, we need to put them on some form of drugs which can also act upon the weight. For example, if the patient is found to have insulin resistance, that by checking up her fasting blood sugar and the GCT or a GTT, like how Dr. Sheeta Hetal has done for her, for this particular patient, she has started her on metformin. Metformin, we need to tell her what should be the dose. And I personally feel in this particular case, for a woman of 30 BMI, metformin dose of 500 milligram may not be sufficient. I do not know, but I would like to have the opinion from Banshi sir also. But then there are some drugs which can reduce weight, like Orlistat, which has been approved. We can also tell them diet, exercise, metformin with some form of anti-obesity drugs, because if you give them, these patients are all satisfied, and if they even reduce 1 kilo when they come for the follow-up, you encourage them, then that is the way that it gets they get self-motivated and they want to reduce the weight. So this is metformin definitely reduces the insulin resistance. Thereby, it will definitely improve the quality of oocytes, as well as there is definite reduction in the ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome also in patients who have been put on metformin. Then the other drugs what practically I use for this sort of obese individuals are myoinositol group of adjuvants, because myoinositol, you have the
Can I just interrupt you, Dr.
yes,
Ramani?
madam. Yes, madam.
So you said about anti-obesity drugs.
Yes.
Which one do you prefer? What is the dosage? And metformin you said for 30 or 30 BMI.
Maybe I would like to go for 850 milligram BID dose, or maximum of 2 grams also we can go. So that that it depends. And anti-obesity drugs as such, Orlistat is being approved, and I personally feel that there are some alternate medicine drugs like this. I don't know what you call it in Hindi. That's
tell in Tamil.
yeah, Vendayam. That is Sinafan. It's a substance that is made up of this, what we practically use in our food, and sprouted that
Methi.
not yeah, something like
Yeah. Okay. What do you call methi in English?
fenugreek. Fenugreek has got a very good impact. That sprouted fenugreek can definitely, when it is being included, it part of the morning breakfast we can have, and all those sprouted things which have got a protein effect also. And fenugreek is also supposed to prevent the absorption of glucose from the gut. So that is one action it has got. So that I use liberally. And so the combination of metformin and dietary modification plus the lifestyle modification, with all these things we can encourage. See, but we cannot be prolonging on this for a long time, because some patients, they are reluctant to reduce the weight whatever may way or whatever idea suggestions we do give. So in such patients, at least you wait for a period of 3 months, and then maybe in such patients we need to give this, try for this other sort of drugs like myoinositol groups, Mychiro or Dichiro that can be of use.
Yeah, actually, I agree with most of the things that you told Dr. Ramani Devi, but this 3 months, I don't think so it will be enough. The main thing here in these obese patients coming for treatment for infertility, we need to counsel them properly. We have
Yes.
to tell them that if you don't wait for at least this much time, 6 months, you should give them. Otherwise, you'll remain childless. You have to be blunt, and you should know how to. You are good at it, I know that, but just for the benefit of all those who are listening, and so I think we have covered a lot of it from your whatever you said. Now I would like to ask Dr. Bansi, what is the role of metformin in such obese PCOS patients? As a endocrinologist, do you really bank on it? And especially this patient, she has insulin resistance, and so you would like to just what do you think of metformin?
So, Dr. Kanti, first of all, again, one thank you for involving me. One very important, it is not the just obesity. In female, it is a android variety of obesity, which is more important. If you have a gynoid obesity, the BMI could be a 30, but if somebody's her abdominal girth is more than her hips, which is a typical of android obesity, then there is a family history. On a clinical examination, you can find the acanthosis with the menstrual irregularity. I may not need any reports of insulin level or androgen level or anything else to be done. It is always for me a issue when comes a lean PCOS come to me, then I had to get more investigation rather than a person who comes with a typical phenotypic picture. I may not do anything except a simple random blood sugar level, okay, whether she is diabetic just now or not. If I get her lipid profile, it will show me a typical of diabetic dyslipidemia. We call it a Indian dyslipidemia. We call it a atherogenic dyslipidemia, which is a higher triglyceride, which is also an indirect sign of higher insulin resistance. Now, when a person's come with a higher insulin resistance, it is the insulin sensitizer it is to be given. Now, what are the insulin sensitizer? In a exercise is a very good insulin sensitizer, which we are completely neglecting. It is not just the aerobic exercise. It is not just the cardiac exercise, a dancing or walking or a running. I must tell the patient about the muscle strengthening exercise because that is going to improve her insulin sensitivity like anything. The abdominal exercise he has to do along with aerobic activity. So number one, insulin sensitizer. The second is metformin. The third is a glitazone, which we also do use, but the person who is going to plan the pregnancy, even sometimes we give that glitazone and we tell the person, patient also, that you will not become the pregnant on the glitazone. It may increase the slightly weight also, but it decreases the visceral obesity and increases the subcutaneous fat. Sometimes I tell the patient, you have to write on your own and you have to tell that I will not be pregnant on above medication. Doctor had explained me properly and I am signing on my own. And in by mistake also you will not become. Even pioglitazone, one of the side effect was they can become the pregnant even at the age of 40 because it increases the ovulation and it improves anything. And so it's a fantastic insulin sensitizer. The molecule Dr. Ramani Devi was talking about, the only state it is over the counter available. Those who are taking more fats, the fat will not get absorbed. But primarily metformin, we may start with a lower dose like with 250 milligram twice daily, then 3 times daily, then 500 milligram twice daily, 500 milligram twice daily, 3 times daily, and then 1 gram twice daily, which is optimum dose for a female of a 30 BMI, and that will really help. The best part of the metformin, it can be given even in the pregnancy also. So if somebody who is started with a metformin and she become pregnant, we need not to worry so much that metformin can be continued also. So with all these things, but insulin sensitizer mean the diet is very important, your exercise is very important, the medication is very important, and then the regular follow-up. That after 2 months of a metformin with a full dose, I'm sure I would like to see how is the menstruation, how much weight reduction is there, whether person lifestyle followed or not. If after 2 months the things are improved, then we can tell either go for the normal IUI, IVF, depending on the situation. And that point of time, you can think of all those investigation, whether this patient is a now right candidate for IUI or to start with IVF only. That can be taken decision after even 2 months or 3 months also.
So thank you, Dr. Bansi. I'm so happy you're not an IVF specialist. Otherwise, I would have had a lot of competition here in Ahmedabad. Actually, I agree to everything that you said. I want to, and I don't want to add anything more, but just one thing about the exercise, I completely agree with you. And what I tell my patients, I want to just tell you that 3 types of exercises, everything they have to do. They have to do cardio, they have to do muscle strengthening, and they have to do stretching. Now, stretching is also important because if they don't do the stretching, their muscles will become shortened. I think we'll close this with this. And now I would like to ask Dr. Sharma, what do you think? See, we all have been talking about metformin, but are there other adjuvants which you think would help in this case?
Yeah, the thing is, if we understand the problem of the PCOS as far as fertility is concerned, the main problem is the quality of the oocytes and then embryo and then implantation and subsequent continuation of pregnancy. Now, if we go into little details of the causative factors, we know there is a hyperandrogenemia, so we treat that. Then we also, a lot of research is going on to find out what are the other factors, because there are some genetic issues which are involved, which affect the, process of folliculogenesis in the cases of PCOS. And also the reactive oxygen species, ROS factors which are increased in the cases of PCOS ovaries. So we have with that basic knowledge of, it is so many things are involved in the PCOS. In fact, the research is being done in different directions, molecular level, at the genetics level, at the morphological levels. So keeping everything, when we have the information, so we realize that we need to give say inositols, because the levels of follicular fluid inositols is less in these patients. So with the result, there is a insulin, resistance in these patients. And also we know that the reactive oxygen species is increased in these patients. So with the result, we have to reduce it. We need to give them antioxidants. And also we know that these patients also have deficiencies of, say, vitamin D associated with the PCOS patients. So we have to look into that and treat that part also as a adjuvant. And then various multivitamins which are required as an antioxidant. And lastly, there is an information that the mitochondrial function is also affected in the cases of PCOS. So there is a role of CoQ in these patients. So we have to see various problems which are there, which are now coming out with the research, and then combine them together and give them the holistic treatment, starting again with the diet and then with the medicine subsequently.
Yeah, exactly. I think very rightly you have told about this aspect. I also want to know, Dr. Sharma, that DHEAS, we give for ovarian improvement of ovarian reserve. We also give testosterone for ovarian reserve, and so many other things we give, for the ovarian reserve. So what do you think, which are the, because it improves the ovarian reserve, do these molecules also improve the oocyte quality?
Yeah. Another thing is when we give when we are talking about the poor ovarian reserve, so we are giving adjuvants over there to improve the number of the eggs, but they will improve the number of eggs. They may not improve the quality of the eggs. So you may have to add adjuvants to improve the quality of the eggs in those patients separately. So only adding the DHEA will not help these patients.
So, Dr. Sushma, what's your view regarding other adjuvants which would improve the quality of oocytes?
Dr. Kanti, just want to add one very important thing. Because as Dr. R.K. Sharma had talked about vitamin D, which is very commonly deficient in our Indian patients with metabolic syndrome. But we should not forget the vitamin B12 deficiency, which is very, very common. And particularly, if we don't get the vitamin B12 deficiency corrected with the patient who is started with metformin, which further increases the vitamin B12 deficiency, and vitamin B12 supplementation is very important. There are metformin, which is also available along with vitamin B12 in combination too, but in separately also. And now we are also seeing even the nasal spray, which is also available to increase the availability part of it. So, I mean, vitamin B12, we should not forget. Yes, I agree with myo-inositol and coenzyme Q and vitamin D, which is already talked by Dr. R.K. Sharma. So, I just forgot. So, I thought vitamin B12 supplementation is very, very important.
Especially the patients who are on metformin.
Yes, particularly.
Dr. Bansi Sabu, I would like you to, know what's your view of combining myo-inositol and metformin. You know, many of the, at least in our infertility specialists, many say, no, we don't use it. It has not much evidence, etc. But at the same time, there are others like me. I use a combination of metformin and myo-inositol and have found it very, very useful in my patients, because to my simple mind, I feel that myo-inositol has inositol, which is normally found in the body. And as Dr. Sharma already told, it's excreted in the urine 5 times more. And also he told about the follicular fluid. So if you think with common sense, I think myo-inositol will do good for these patients. So I would like, as an endocrinologist, what is your take? Would you like to add myo-inositol to metformin in cases, or just do metformin?
I would like to add myo-inositol to my patients with PCOS. We have seen the inositol administration reduce the oxidative stress in erythrocytes of patients with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Rather, I can show you some of the papers also, which has been published in 2007, 2012, which had talked about the inositol clinical benefits as far as is reducing the hyperinsulinemia. It also reduces the androgen level. So these two important aspects of PCOS are significantly reduced. When you combine it with metformin, there is one paper also which talked about the patient who was with metformin with myo-inositol and patients who are only on metformin. And there was if you just see the conception rate and ongoing pregnancy rate, there is a significant increase in those who are combined with metformin with inositol in compared to only on metformin. So in my personal view, we do use for many of our patients, and this is an important adjuvant which we can give to our patients with PCOS. For improving their, as an insulin sensitizer, because it decreases hyperinsulinemia and it decreases androgen level also. So it's commonly prescribed and written by many of IVF specialists, PCOS specialists, and endocrinologists also.
Thank you so much for this. And again, I'm so happy that we share the same thoughts. It's, very surprising that we are agreeing with. Sometimes there's so much of disagreement in the panel or such expert opinions and all. They start, now it's virtual good. Otherwise, they start tearing the shirts and all that.
No. Yes, Dr. Ramani Devi, you have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute.
Yeah, see, in some of the patients, when we go to the dose of 1 gram BID of metformin, tolerance is not that much good. They have flatulence and they have diarrhea.
That's
and
the reason, Dr. Ramani Devi, I told that you start with a low dose. Even you can start with a 250 milligrams also. That tolerance, in metformin, it is written very clearly. You up-titrate the dose of metformin maybe in another 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, that's very important, and which I do for many of my who are non-diabetic. If they become intolerant, they may not come back to you. So, I mean, that's very important. You start with them 250 milligram. It is available in a Obimet and Glycomet, 2 brands which are available. Then you can make it 500, then you can make 1 gram.
Yes,
so
sir.
Dr. Bansi Sabu, I always give 250. I always, for all my patients, first I go in a step ways, half, then half, then half, 1, then 1, 1.
Yes, so you can always increase the dose, which is very
And I remember one of my patients who was so sensitive to this metformin. I started off with her with the pediatric dose, pediatric syrup I give her. Then she, really continued.
There are 5% of the patient who can be 100% intolerant. So that you have to find. That
No, what I want to tell you is in such cases, really cases where they are not tolerant, I think myoinostal with dechirioinostal is a better alternative because they don't say much.
I think the use of probiotic in our metabolic syndrome should be increased also.
Yes, probiotics.
One. So if you use like a immunobiotic and a probiotic to your patient, the tolerance for metformin will also increase. They will not be a vitamin B12 deficient more often, and they will decrease in weight also because there is a definite, your intestinal bacteria is completely changed. The microbiota of a metabolic syndrome in obese person and a lean person is completely different. So you give them a probiotic, it will help them to improve their insulin sensitivity. It will also help them to tolerate better dose of metformin. And we are writing now very often this immunobiotic, which is very commonly written. So, I mean, this is one thing which you can add in your prescription too.
Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing out this point because microbiota is emerging as, it's for everything, for PCOS, endometriosis. You can actually turn the disease itself, reverse the disease process by microbiota.
It's very important. We should use it.
Yes, sir.
In fact, they say that the origin of PCOS quite often starts from the gut because it is the diet which provides the environment of insulin sensitizing and then further cascade of events. So in corollary to Dr. Kanti's question, which other adjuvants we can think of? So some other are N-acetyl cysteine, which is also found to be helpful in reducing insulin sensitivity, as well as it has got an antioxidative effect also. One thing which we have done the study at our institute is melatonin, and that has been found very important because of various things like
dose and how long you give, etc. Melatonin.
Actually, we had given at the dose of 2 milligram, 4 milligram, and 8 milligram. 3 dosage were tried in the patients, and then we had measured the follicular fluid melatonin level and found out in PCOS cases, and it was found that the 4 milligram dose was found to be giving us good melatonin level. However, the clinical reciprocation of that was not still done, but melatonin has been found in PCOS as a good adjuvant. It's emerging. However, there are not many RCTs on it, but possibly it will come. There are many adjuvant combinations are available where one of them is melatonin and it works very well. Metformin, much has been said. In lean PCOS, we sometimes feel that what is the use of metformin, but visceral obesity is always there. Higher insulin resistance is always there in even lean PCOS. So starting metformin early, and whenever we start all these adjuvants, it has got at least, it needs 3 to 4 to 6 months for its complete action. It's not that today I will start with this metformin or myoinositol and immediately I will get better quality oocytes or good response. So we'll have to give that much of the waiting time for the environment, body environment to get okay.
Yeah, so I think you have nearly covered everything. I would just like to add, though it may not be pertinent to this case, but these are all the medical adjuvants. If we really think in a broad way adjuvants, we can even think of, the laparoscopic ovarian drilling that we do, that is the surgical adjuvant. It's my opinion. And so that will also give rise, it will desensitize and the PCOS patients will start ovulating and we may be successful. Another very recent addition is the, AOA, that is activated oocyte. The oocyte is activated and artificial oocyte, artificial oocyte activation. Yeah. So in that, the calcium, ionic forms are introduced into the oocyte, and so that becomes active. Basically, it may not be very useful in these type of patients, but definitely in the male factor, especially where there's a complete fertilization failure in ICSI patients. I think that is important. So now I would like Dr. Sharma to really answer some questions which I think none of us will really be knowing. And this is the crux of this today's discussion. In fact, I have invited Dr. R.K. Sharma as an expert because you all will be surprised to know that he not only does the clinical part, but he's also a very, very good embryologist. In fact, when I started, nobody knew what is, they didn't know embryology. So I learned embryology. I started doing embryology, and those were the bygone days. Now we have 5 or 6 embryologists with our centers. But it's so nice that here we have Brigadier R.K. Sharma with us to really tell us how these adjuvants affect the oocytes. Has he seen, do you have any statistical data, and have they improved really the pregnancy rates, the implantation rates? So actually we have come to the point at the end of the expert opinion, I must say, but then people are waiting to hear you, Dr. Sharma.
Now, we know that there is the poor quality of oocytes in the case of PCOS. But what is the poor quality that we should know? What we are talking about? Is it the morphology? In the morphology, when we see the oocytes in the case of the PCOS, you may find there may be abnormalities in the zona, there may be abnormality in the perivitelline space, or there may be abnormalities in the cytoplasm of the oocytes in the form of central granulation or extravasculations in these oocytes. That is one aspect that we see quite often in the patients of PCOS. The second is the problem is at the molecular level, which we cannot see as an embryologist. But if we have a spindle view where we can see the spindle of this thing, you find that the PCOS oocytes, they have more of abnormal spindles. So which leads to poor fertilization and increased chances of aneuploidies and decreased implantation and increased abortion rate also. The next is the quality of oocyte. When we're talking about is the maturity of the oocytes, which is a basic thing, whether it's M2 or M1 or GV, which are more in the cases of PCOS patients. Now, if we like over the years, when I was in the armed forces, I had to do the embryology myself, I had to do the clinical work also myself, and I had to prescribe the medicines also, all the things, the ultrasound, everything together. So I could, bypass that elephant effect. I could see all the aspects of the patient and, modify the treatments accordingly. So what I found was that when I added the adjuvants, like inositols and antioxidants and micronutrients to these patients. So the morphological improvement was there, and also there was a increased number of N2 oocytes which was there, and getting good quality of N2 oocytes and more number of such good quality oocytes. So definitely it improved the implantation rate significantly, and also the carry home, because it was an obstetric center also. The carry home pregnancy rate was also improved by adding this adjuvants to these patients. Now, which adjuvant to give and which combination to give, there are various combinations which are available. We'll not go into that, but only thing is that we should know that the patients would require antioxidants. Patients would require mitochondrial, helping enzymes, and also would require some vitamins, as we have discussed, B12, vitamin D, especially the deficiencies there. So it does improve statistically if we add these adjuvants as an embryologist. And also it improves upon the cumulative pregnancy rate because you have more embryos to freeze, the good quality embryos.
Yes.
So with the result, not only improves pregnancy, it improves the cumulative pregnancy rate also. So it is more cost effective to the patient. They have more good quality embryos to be frozen. So with the result, the overall cost of pregnancy per pregnancy will also be reduced in these patients.
So thank you so much for this. I think you have given a very good take-home message to all the delegates here that adjuvants do help in the quality of the oocyte, but we have to carefully and also with our practice and experience decide on which adjuvants. And Dr. Sharma, what happened was once I got this. Actually, all the experts and everybody had myself picked, I must say, and the presenter too. But then the topic was brainchild of Dr. Durusha, and actually she had told me initially you do on one subject, but see, because I got busy or something, I couldn't really tell her. So she gave me this topic. Then once she gave me the topic, I thought she must have really thought something and given me. So I, went ahead with this. I rang up to nearly about 8 to 10 embryologists. I have different centers, so so many embryologists are associated with me. I asked them. I said, "Have you seen any difference?" But unfortunately, what is happening? It is not their fault. They said, no, we do not know anything about the quality of the oocyte after treatment with these adjuvants, etc. So what the problem is, there's no proper connection between the IVF specialist and the embryologist. Sad story. I've been telling people that every 15 days you should call the embryologist, they have meetings and all that, but we do not have that much time. So we have to make some consensus with the embryologist, talk with them, and then tell them that we have given this patient metformin, myoinositol, whatever antioxidants for 6 months, and now I am doing. And have you found any change? This would be a real topic for research and presentation, I think. So I would urge all my experts to start doing this. This homework for all of us, including me. And
That's a very good carry home message. Thank you so much for putting it further.
Yeah. So Dr. Ramani Devi is being sitting very quietly now. So actually, I was thinking of asking Sushma, but I can ask both of you your views. Would you continue the adjuvants? Supposing that patient got pregnant, Hetal's patient. Would you continue after pregnancy? One of you can answer. You can answer, Sushma. You're already there.
Yes, I would like to continue the physical activity as an adjuvant, diet as an adjuvant, which Dr. Sabu has said, and the other adjuvants which we have already, like metformin. If it has been given and indicated, it should be continued. That definitely helps in, because ultimately PCOS is a metabolic syndrome and it remains as it is. So what we are treating is metabolic syndrome, and for that, whatever evidence-based medicines have been there, we should be continuing. That is what I.
Yeah. What about Dr. Ramani Devi? What's your
Yes,
view?
madam, I am very much in favor of continuing metformin, especially for two reasons. One is for insulin sensitivity. Then the other one is the incidence of miscarriage rates are supposed to be high in PCOS patients. So that can be reduced by continuing the metformin, and it also prevents the onset of gestational diabetes. If this patient has got only insulin resistant pre-IVF, then the chances of becoming a gestational diabetes is quite high. That can be reversed by continuing the use of metformin. And so I would like to continue. Then again, regarding the micronutrients, so Dr. Panshi sir has said about B12, but I think B6 along with folic acid, B6 and B12 are essential. And I feel there is a small role in using this selenium and chromium picolate as a micronutrient, in especially in this polycystic ovarian disease patients, because they are both are supposed to increase the insulin sensitivity.
So one more question for you. Will you, as I continue, metformin and myoinositol, now
Yes.
I also continue something else. Do you also continue any other things, antioxidants?
Maybe we can continue with L-arginine, madam. L-arginine I do continue because sometimes
That's
if they have
antioxidant.
an antioxidants like yeah, I'll tell you why I continue.
Coenzyme Q, coenzyme Q.
Yeah, coenzyme Q10 I don't continue once when they become pregnant. I stop it. But I
Yeah.
continue L-arginine because the PCO patients are at a high risk of developing atherosclerosis and they can have a higher incidence of vasculopathies occurring during pregnancy. So adding L-arginine, continuing it throughout pregnancy can reduce the chances of the woman getting hypertensive disorders. I continue along with that low dose aspirin because these people are all at high risk of developing hypertensive disorders in pregnancy.
So excellent, expert opinions by all, I must say. Very good. I will just tell a few things about the antioxidants and the amino acids. And CoQ, Dr. Ramani Devi, should be continued because it improves the pregnancy rates and the live birth rates also. Okay, so now I just few things.
I continue till they become pregnant, but after that I don't.
See, it improves the ovarian response to stimulation and embryological parameters, improves follicular fluid oxidative metabolism and oocyte quality. I agree 100%. That's why you're telling that. But now listen, especially in over 35-year-old women, beneficial effect on clinical pregnancy and live birth rates.
Okay.
That's why I'm telling. Now we have L-carnitine because I've seen in the chat box, people want to know all these things. So L-carnitine, 500 milligrams, it is an amino acid and antioxidant. It helps in the follicle, reduces body weight, BMI, what Dr. Bansi Sabu said, waist and hip circumferences, provide production to reproductive cells against oxidative damage. Again, okay, that is 500 milligram. L-carnitine 500, L-arginine 3 milligram. Again, this is amino acid and antioxidant. Then lycopene 2.5 milligram. This is also a very powerful antioxidant. Folic acid 100 micrograms. Water-soluble vitamin. And this is a for better quality oocytes and higher mature oocytes. I still remember Dr. Behram Ankleshwaria. I'd gone to his home because my first book was published, and in that his foreword was there. I went to gift him that book. Then he told me, I heard you are a very good infertility specialist. What do you give to your patients to improve their, pregnancy rates and all? I started telling some high funda things, and he said, "Arey madam, folic acid." So I'll never forget folic acid. Then cyanocobalamin, 1 microgram, that is vitamin B. This has likelihood of reproductive success is there. Vitamin D3, again, Bansisabu, 400 IU fat soluble vitamin. It does increase the, helps in the insulin resistance and better embryo qualities and higher clinical pregnancy rate. Zinc 10 milligrams, selenium 40 micrograms. These are the trace elements. Improves pregnancy rate and unexplained infertility. Plays a significant role in undisturbed functioning of the reproductive system. I also give vitamin E. I found a lot.
E and C,
Yes.
good antioxidant effect.
So I think all these things which are found in food products and can we eat them as salads, etc. But then for these patients who are in trouble, we need to give them these molecules of adjuvants. And I think we have the main molecule is metformin, followed by myoinositol, followed by all these antioxidants and micronutrients and vitamin B12, etc., etc. And of course, we cannot forget what all of us believe that, lifestyle interventions. and continue these metformin and all these things after the pregnancy. And so this way, I think we all can give a good live birth to our patients. Now I think it's 8:31. There are a few questions. Let me, yeah. Dr. Kalpana Bhatt, HbA1c and thyroid status. For that case, I think we have done with that case. Method of transfer of embryo under USG. I think this doesn't pertain to this topic, but anyway, we have two methods of embryo transfer. One is, where we after load and prior load methods, and I will not go into the details. Generally, I do after load in all my centers, and we got a very good pregnancy rates. And we should always do sonography, not without sonography. I do not advocate, and I tell everybody not to do transvaginal, sonography, because it will cause prostaglandin, release, and you'll not have pregnancy rates as good as the abdominal sonography. Yeah. Now, any prior drug given for insulin resistance, we have told this already, metformin, and we forgot one very important thing, metformin and myoinositol. All these things have to be at least for 3 months prior to what we do these techniques, because even only after that, these ovaries will be capable of producing good quality oocytes, not before that. And we have to counsel the patients for that. Now, please discuss which antioxidants or adjuvants to start pre-infertility treatment or pre-ovulation induction. I think my experts have really beautifully told everything. And please discuss, what is that? Patient is overweight but no PCOS. Please talk about adjuvants. Yeah, so no PCOS, I don't know. I think it doesn't pertain to our this discussion. Yeah, it's just about obesity, and in just obesity, maybe just what I can say is do all the other things. Not maybe metformin and all may not work, but what Dr. Ramani said, anti-obesity drugs, etc. To obese, even bariatric surgery can be done. Yes. But as far as adjuvants is concerned, I don't think so. Any role of vitamin D, we have already talked about it. Then any role of appetite suppressant in PCOD. I don't believe in this. Appetite, it will cause more harm than good. And how long do you continue metformin in pregnancy? We have already told, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what is this embryo transfer? Acha, Sushma has answered. Can I use this? Can I leave?
Sir wants to leave.
Vansi. Yes, left. Yeah. So thank you all so much. And I think I was just wondering that इतना time है 1.5 hours. हम क्या बात करेंगे? गप्पे लगाएंगे, गाना गाएंगे, but only this discussion went about adjuvants. So गाना वाना गाने के लिए फिर से मिलते हैं. मेरे घर आ जाना, सफल पे आ जाना. So nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma from Delhi, Dr. Ramani from Trichy, and my Gujarat, Sushma and Bansi Sabu. You had created, sensation today. It was too good, your deliberation. And Hetal, you started well. So, well begun is half done. I think you have done completely. So let's all meet again. Very nice. And I don't want to go, but we need to go now. My husband will get angry. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. It was fun. Enjoyed.
Real great. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
That's important.
Thank you. Thank you all, Major Sharma sir, Banshi sir, Sushma madam, and Hetal.
Actually, it was such
Thank you all.
case but it went as if we are playing some game. And I would really like to thank Dr. Duru, my sweetheart Penali for being so cooperative. My God, I love that girl. And also Torrent Pama for supporting us, giving the educational grant, and Shobit and Omnicurus for arranging it so beautifully, no flaw. And I don't know how today all our net services have behaved very well.
Yes, yes. No hang-ups today.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. So now Mike to Ketan.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks, everybody. Nice meeting everyone.
So then there are, besides these wonderful webinars and interactions, there are a lot of other benefits also of the PCOS Society. There are reduced registration fees, certificate courses that go on, free learning that happens, and you get access to the journals, opportunity to contribute in it, to grow with it. So I think everybody should be a member of PCOS Society now. And where you can become a member, you can just log in to the website and become a member as early as possible. So that's it about the PCOS Society and these wonderful webinars. It was a great time. Thank you all the experts. Thank you all the participants for sparing your time and being here. Thank you, Team Omnicurus and Shobit. Thank you, Pinali. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
I request everyone to, get members for this wonderful society, PCOS Society of India. It's so different from the other organizations, very clean society. Only we have such great academic sessions that I feel everybody should be benefited by this. So we should take more interest in ask people to become members. That is my honest request. So
Yeah, your motivation helped me. I became a patron member just last week.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting. Thank you.